Chapter 8. Resignation. UEF Capital Science Institute, October 31st, 2263, 0633 hours. With a trembling hand, Dr. Avery Oakfield put down his empty mug beside a framed photo of his late wife, Shaylin. Only caffeine and adrenaline were keeping him upright. The building shuddered from another groundquake, forcing Avery to grab his desk. His bones creaked more than the polished oak workstation, and he picked up a framed photograph of his late wife, which had fallen over. That brought back memories. A hollow screen on his desk showed that geological disturbances were occurring beneath each dome habitat on Earth. Only one force on or under this planet could cause that. Avery had many secrets, each one darker and more of a burden on his conscience than the last. This particular secret was threatening to bubble to the surface, both in his thoughts and under the planet itself. 23 years ago, he had been ordered by the UEF government to conduct a technological outreach program, extending an olive branch to the Confederacy to prevent a repeat of the Great War from breaking out and finishing off the planet. The Confederates had been living an entirely separate existence from the UEF for the last 80 years after that disastrous conflict had ended, building immense enclosed habitats of their own to survive the toxic planet's surface, most of which extended into vast underground cities and geothermal shafts. Avery had attempted to share ABADDON's technology with them by personally bringing the obelisk to their territory with a small team, hoping that the Confederacy's alternative ways of thinking could come up with a solution for the nanophage, which was getting bad even in those times. They were an honorable people, in Avery's opinion, becoming highly advanced and adept with cybernetics in their long period of divorce from the UEF after the Great War. The technological exchange program had initially gone well, but as patented Federation nanite technology was implemented on a massive scale, the phage soon began to spread among the Confederate population as well. Their cybernetics were especially affected. Avery and the Confederacy's joint ABADDON experiments eventually resulted in the creation of multiple psychic beings, which was initially heralded as a scientific triumph. But as the situation grew more desperate, ABADDON used them to trigger a supercharging of the phage, which Avery had later dubbed an ascension attempt. As the nanophage rapidly evolved, overtaking their cities and infecting thousands upon thousands in an unstoppable tide of destruction, the Confederacy had resorted to deploying almost every remaining nuclear weapon they had to stop it, vaporizing their surface habitats and damaging the Earth's atmosphere even more than the initial Great War nuclear exchanges. Avery had barely made it out alive as the sole UEF survivor, haunted by the experience as he returned to Federation territory alone on board his shuttle with the ABADDON obelisk. The beacon had shown its hand to him, but he was still determined to stop the nanophage in any way he could. Despite his protestations, Avery had been compelled by the greed-driven Strategos Council to continue churning out new ABADDON-derived technological innovations, despite the dangers of these very things spreading the phage. All the council members could see was power and the profit potential of such miraculous technologies. Avery knew that if he'd refused to continue, someone else would have taken over ABADDON research, someone else without the knowledge about it that he had. So he was left with no choice but to proceed and try to figure out a new solution for the phage himself. Expeditions to Confederate territory afterward had found no survivors, so the UEF believed that they had been wiped out in a civil war. The olive branch had burned, along with the old enemy, and any possible scientific solutions they had been able to work out for the phage. But Avery believed the Confederates were still down there, deep within the Earth, likely still fighting their own outbreak of the nanophage. One day, they would return. With the recent tremors across UEF territory, he feared that day was fast approaching. Avery crossed to the window, which reflected his lined face, graying hair, and unkempt mustache. The glass depolarized so he could see the artificial sun rising up the interior side of the city's Atmodome, mirroring the real sun beyond the toxic superstorms raging outside. Maybe Abhammic Subject 107 was seeing this too, if he was still alive somewhere out there. Jason had been gone for many years now, but Avery still held out hope that one day he would be found, even now, at the present moment of crisis with the Empire. A quick glance at his private desk monitor showed spikes in psionic energy levels deep within the main lab. The ABADDON beacon was growing restless once again, deep down in the central complex, and he shuddered to think what that might mean. "Dr. Oakfield, may I have your attention again, please?" asked an unctuous voice from behind him. With a deep breath, Avery turned around. His break was over. The floor-to-ceiling window darkened as Avery faced 5 screens projected from his desk's hollow-viewer. 5 giant faces gazed down at him with varying degrees of haughtiness and contempt. Other feeds were also active for dozens more useless bureaucrats. Avery attempted to keep his expression neutral. "As I was saying, Dr. Oakfield, do you have any further objections to ending our war with the Empire?" asked President Winslow. He was younger than Avery, but he appeared older, haggard and pale, with unkempt gray hair. Even though it was off topic, Avery considered voicing his concerns about the ground tremors and their connection to the possible reemergence of the Confederacy, as if they needed more problems. But Winslow was the same man that he'd been 20 years ago, the same man to scoff at Avery's early warnings about Abaddon, the Phage, and what it had done to the Confederacy. Winslow had managed to get his term extended several times, far beyond the limits of the Federation's constitution, and the UEF had suffered for it. Trying to raise the alarm again would fall on deaf ears. Avery returned his attention to the present crisis. "My position has not changed, President Winslow, no matter how many times I repeat myself," Avery said. "Surrender is a mistake. We can never trust Emperor Mariko. The last 4 years of grinding interplanetary warfare should have made that clear." Yes, thank you. Your objections have already been noted, Dr. Oakfield," said Winslow. "Noted is not the same as understood, Mr. President." Winslow shook his head. "I understand your reservations, but we didn't need a unanimous vote for this. Our deal with Hadrian Mariko is finalized. The Empire will annex the UEF today. The Federation and Colossi peoples shall become whole again in peace. Think of this as a victory, Doctor." Avery scowled. "Spare me the rhetoric. No deal is ever final, which you should know given your business background. We can still reverse this. The Solar War is winnable if we can reorganize our military and push back into the territories that the Empire have taken from us." "The war is not winnable," countered Supreme Commander Joseph Folk, leader of the UEF Armed Forces. "We've lost Mars, our last stronghold in the mid-system Gulf. That was the tipping point, shortening our effective resistance to weeks rather than months. Approaching the Empire for amnesty and a deal was our only option. It was your son who sacrificed half the Fourth Fleet to save just a few thousand people." "My son saved 103,506 civilians, Supreme Commander. I think that's a fair trade for 15 battered warships running skeleton crews," Avery said. "Nightshade Squadron wasn't even supposed to be there," Folk growled. "He disobeyed Admiral Powell's direct orders. That's a felony, punishable by death in wartime, which this is. We will deal with Commander Oakfield in due course." "Or you could listen to him," Avery said, his anger getting the better of him. "Nightshade Squadron's tactics are a testament to how offensive strategies against the Empire have worked. It's the only thing that works against them. Wherever they're involved, Nightshade beats the Imperials, in space and on the ground. Our fleets have 36 additional capital ships, thanks to Nightshade's piracy operations. Imagine what our position would have been now if you allowed other units to operate without your crushing oversight, like they do, like my son does. This crossed a line with Joseph Folk, who went bright red in the face, unable to form a response. The finance minister interrupted before Folk could explode into another rant. Dr. Oakfield, even if we were to assume an offensive strategy, our economic collapse will soon follow, Minister Savareau said. We have half a sidereal year at most before our central banks enter bankruptcy. Hyperinflation has set in, and all of our investments in military spending are vastly overleveraged. We can't service our debt anymore, nor can we continue to finance this level of combat operations. Our only remaining option is ending the war and allowing the Empire's stronger economy to stabilize the Federation, or we risk a prolonged depression. Dumping huge sums into an all-out assault on Colossus will only hasten our decline. The other council members nodded like lemmings at the finance minister's mischaracterization of Avery's position. Avery spread his fingers painfully on his desk. Breaching Colossus isn't required, you money-printing incompetent, Avery said. I've never proposed that. We just need to cut off the territories Mariko has seized to choke their supply lines, as they've done to us. Mars, Venus, the asteroid belts, the Jovian mining outposts and water reclamation sites, the agriculture habitats and fuel processors, for instance. Retaking some of these locations will starve Colossus out. The homeworld does not have enough resources for self-sufficiency without these territories, which is why the Emperor has conducted this war how he has, because neither does Colossus. It's always been a land grab. Mariko wants to consolidate all of our remaining resources under his banner, and then use them to expand our reach far outside the Sol system for more resources, before we run out of everything and die here. The High Bishop of Social Compliance spoke without addressing Avery directly, talking to Winslow, and said, Mr. President, Dr. Oakfield is not meeting the criteria for accepted speech as decreed by the Church. I feel his aggression through our holocall. A short reconditioning session might fix. Avery slammed a fist on his desk. There's no way in hell I'm visiting one of your reconditioning camps, you fraud. Your church divides everyone, while Mariko hangs the sword of Damocles over our heads. The dystopian stories of our past were meant to be cautionary tales, not a roadmap for your personal use. The Emperor himself said that your ideological poison might cost the Federation the war, and I agree with him on that. The room went deathly quiet. The bishop's haughty face went crimson. Avery had dared to speak positively of the Emperor, and in opposition to the Church. Either one was a capital offense, even for a high-ranked inter-party member. Before the bishop could explode like Folk had, the Minister of Industry asked, Can we still count on your expertise with the artifact, Doctor, even after the annexation? What? What are you talking about? The pudgy industrialist, Minister Cooper, picked his words carefully. Well, Federation has been reliant on regular technological advancements from your ABADDON Beacon research operations, one of the few advantages we've had against the Empire. My gigafactories are still awaiting new nanotech innovations. We've had to overproduce older designs, from military hardware to civilian appliances. Avery pinched the bridge of his nose. Our lack of new nanite tech deliveries is a result of funding cuts from your war. Cutting your outrageous budgets were necessary due to the war, Dr. Oakfield. Cooper replied. Avery ignored Cooper's jab. I am also reluctant to hand over new innovations from the Technological Translation Program because of the lack of safety regulations in your gigafactories, Minister. As quality standards fall, the faster the nanophage spreads. That's on you, Minister Cooper. Once again, the room fell silent. The meeting was nearing rock bottom, so Winslow spoke up. Thank you for this, Dr. Oakfield, the president said. This call was our courtesy to you. As the only dissenting vote about the upcoming ceasefire contract with the Empire, we are obligated to hear your objections on record, but we do not agree with your criticisms, so our deal with Hadrian Mariko will continue. The Solar War ends today. Avery was also finished playing games. Of course, then. I'm the bad guy, as always. Winslow spoke like the consummate politician that he was. Doctor, we respect your opinions regarding your own fields, the sciences and engineering, etc. You have directed the UEF's research division with great distinction, despite certain failings. Given the rumors about Hadrian Mariko's origins, you're lucky that we're letting you off so easily. The other counselors nodded. Avery dropped into his high-backed chair and kicked up his aching feet. Fine. I'll give you the unanimity that you've always wanted, he said. I resign from the Strategos Council. I refuse to shake hands with the devil. Winslow shrugged. Very well, then. Your place in the new order will be waiting for you, but something tells me that the Emperor will not take kindly to your resignation. Get out of my office, Mr. President. That goes for the rest of you. Very well, then. Good day, Dr. Oakfield, and good luck, Winslow replied. The president's screen went dead. The others disconnected quickly, eager to escape the Viper's den. Good day to you too, scumbag cowards, muttered Avery. He released his breath and keyed the intercom. Mary, we need to talk about our contingency plans. Mary, are you there? There was no response from his secretary, whose desk was right outside his office door. Most high-ranking officials use advanced AI assistants, but Avery still favored human interaction. Mary? What's happening? Avery asked, when there was no response. He did hear a muffled banging at his door, as his secretary tried to enter, but the door was armored. Avery suspected that it wouldn't open for anyone. A new voice boomed through the room's hidden speakers. Your executive assistant is unavailable, Dr. Oakfield. She seems to be having difficulties accessing your office, or so I'm told. Hadrian. Avery turned around to see his holoprojector drawing a life-size projection of Emperor Hadrian Mariko right there in his office. His pale, slender face was regal, the image of calm poise and self-assured command. Though the Emperor was frail in body, supported by a gold-trimmed black cane, he was tall and well-dressed, choosing to appear in simple business attire rather than ostentatious robes of office or some gigantic suit of armor. The power Mariko radiated more than made up for his physical frailty. The Emperor gave him a genuine smile. Avery supposed that Mariko had every reason to be feeling good right now. It's been too long, Doctor. Your breakup with those council weaklings was very, very entertaining. Bravo! What do you want, Hadrian? Well, I suppose this is another courtesy call, Mariko responded, adjusting his glasses and running a hand through his long, silky raven hair. You're a very popular man, you know that? Multiple heads of state calling you one after the other? I don't think there's another individual in the entire solar system with that kind of influence, not even myself. Which must get to you, Avery remarked, folding his arms. On the contrary, I am the ruler of all mankind now. My ego is very much intact, thank you, Hadrian said, maintaining his perpetual smile. To what do I owe this pleasure, then, Emperor? Avery said, returning to a bored, neutral tone, but with an edge of disdain. I'd simply like some recommitment to your ongoing responsibilities, now that the tides are turning, if you would indulge me. The Emperor's burning eyes bore into Avery, forever aflame with abhamic energies. Even from thousands of kilometers above his head, Avery felt an inkling of the man's devastating mental power, like a sunbeam that was just a bit too hot. "Ongoing responsibilities?" Avery asked, teeth clenched. Mariko smiled. "Yes. And, to set the stage, I'm told that we have your son cornered on an orbital station. That battle progresses as we speak." Avery went cold. No. The Emperor had publicly killed Anne in single combat many years ago, during a live broadcast of their final takeover of Colossus. The betrayal had captivated billions. Now Zeke was in Mariko's clutches, too. Would Avery lose his entire family to this menace? "Why are you telling me this?" Avery asked. "Because, if you cooperate with my request, I will ensure his safety," said Mariko. "You still owe me a successor from that little program I asked you to run for me many years ago. The one that birthed my daughters. I need you to finish it for me." "The successor program is finished. I sent you 9 candidates before the war started," Avery said, grinding his teeth. "And you broke your promise. You said that if I did what you asked with them, you would postpone the war." "We were left with no choice. The Strategos Council started this war, not I," Mariko corrected, running a projected hand down Avery's arm. "And those 9 clones you sent were not bred to my exact specifications. I didn't give you Anne's genetic material just to watch you waste it. My daughters are technically your family too, your grandchildren. I would have thought you'd take more care with their development. Where is the 10th specimen that you produced? The one you said was the most successful." "The 10th specimen is gone. The successor program fell apart soon after, thanks to the Council's meddling," Avery said, pulling away from Hadrian's holographic touch. Even though the Emperor's hand wasn't physically present, Avery swore that he still felt it. No matter. We'll find her," Mariko said. "And if we don't, you'll simply restart until it succeeds. My philosophy and my empire must have continuity." Avery didn't respond. Hadrian smiled. "My deal for you is this. If you continue the successor program, I'll make sure Zeke is taken alive by my people. You might even see him again. Sound good?" Avery let his rage boil over. "Fine. If it means that my son will survive, I'll create another little you." Hadrian brightened. "Excellent. And I'll throw you another bone, Avery. During our takeover of Earth's orbital shipyards, we spotted the so-called outlaw of Colossus. Anne's alive. She's been operational for years longer than I suspected, despite my best efforts." "Anne is alive?" Avery reeled from the emotional whiplash. He'd hoped in his private moments that she wasn't dead, but with no access to Colossus Station for many years, he'd never had a way of confirming it. If true, Anne must have been surviving in the most remote, hostile areas on that gigantic space habitat to remain hidden from the Empire. A truly brutal existence. "Of course she is. I've never lied to you, Avery," Mariko said, grinning his perpetual grin. "Once we've captured Anne, we might even give her back to you, to help with the successor program and ABADDON Beacon nanotech research. It'll be just like old times. Maybe she'll even meet her daughter, my true successor, someday." "You should have finished the job. If she's really alive, Anne will end you." "I'm sure she will try, Avery," said Mariko. "That girl's nothing if not persistent. But my crimes pale compared to your own. Are you able to judge me?" "Absolutely. You could have stayed with the Abermancer program and helped me stop the nanophage the right way. But you had to go off and start your blasted empire instead. Look at how things have gone since then. Look at how many lives have been destroyed, and how much further the phage has spread thanks to this pointless, destructive solar war. Avery spat. What you've never realized is that the ABADDON beacon is still controlling you, and it has been from the start. This is all what it wants. You weren't powerful enough to use my amplifier, so the beacon crushed your will, and now you believe everything it says. You're nothing but a slave to ABADDON. In your arrogance, you've never been able to see that. Mariko's voice deepened, but that awful smile never wavered. Ha! Lies. ABADDON has told me many things, and they have all come true. We have no reason to distrust it, and when I arrive on Earth, I will find it. With the beacon's power, I will save our species from the phage, and from ourselves. Mankind's future cannot be left in your incompetent hands. The obelisk told me that the final sacrifice is at hand, Avery. Today. Nothing can stop it. Hadrian, if you have a shred of decency left in you, you'll call off whatever you're planning. Return to the labs and submit yourself for treatment, Avery pleaded. ABADDON will lead you into destroying us if you don't. No, I freed myself from your clutches before, and I will never allow you to control me again, Mariko retorted, defiantly. Fine. Get out, Avery demanded. As you wish, old friend. I'll see you soon. And remember, everything to come was only possible because of you. The hologram dematerialized. Avery collapsed into his leather seat. His conversation with Mariko, which had felt more like sparring with a demon, had exhausted him more than the council meeting had. He picked up the framed photograph on his desk. Oh, Shaylin, Avery said. We've really screwed things up, haven't we? His wife's unmoving face stared back, judging him. Avery heard a renewed rapping on his door. The room's soundproofing technology had been downplaying outside noise until now. The office door unlocked, and it burst open, revealing his secretary and two of the facility's guards. Dr. Oakfield, are you all right? Mary asked, terrified. Her eyes darted around the room, confused at the lack of a reason for the door being locked. I'm fine. Everything's fine, Avery said, pouring some water from the pitcher on his desk and drinking deeply. Is there a security risk to you, sir? To the facility? Asked one of the guards, scanning the office. Avery shook his head, gulping from the glass. Not now, but there will be. Sir? Asked the guard, confused. The Solar Empire was projecting a total communications blackout from orbit, but panic was inevitable once their fleet became visible from the surface. The truth was about to be revealed. Mary, please instruct the laboratory staff to purge all project files, active and archived, Avery said. Everything. Mary was alarmed. What? You heard me. Do it, please. Avery pointed to the tablet on her desk. With a concerned look at him, Mary left to type out the fateful message. Avery turned to the guards. Once the purge is complete, we'll evacuate the campus. The Empire is coming, and they'll send a contingent here once they land. I won't be able to protect any of you from them. Like Mary, the security men were floored. One of them asked, Sir, the Solar Empire is coming here? I'll say it until it sticks, son. This isn't a drill, nor is it a joke. The war is over. They're coming, Avery said, and took both guards by the shoulders. Please, do this for me. The number of personnel who survived today relies on your speed. The Solar Empire will purge anyone with a trace of the nanophage. At least half our staff have minor infections, with many undergoing treatments. But, sir, the science teams will want to protect their work. Especially the artifact, said one of the guards. Avery shook his head. Hiding the Abaddon beacon from the Emperor is impossible now. All we can do is slow them down. Go, now, carry out my orders, please. The guards nodded, following Mary out of the office. Avery shut the door and activated a wall-sized camera view of the science facility's core laboratory. The chamber was gigantic, manned by hundreds of scientists, engineers, and their assistants. A whirlwind of activity was starting. Technicians dashed to the data storage banks, grabbing fire axes to bludgeon the servers. Others stood at computer terminals, trying to mass delete as many files as possible. Specialists of all disciplines argued over Avery's orders. Some were paralyzed with indecision. But what drew Avery's attention, as always, was the 20-meter-tall obelisk made of a yet-to-be-identified psychometallic substance, even after a century of study, the Abaddon beacon. It had been named by the Federation scientists who had discovered it over 100 years ago, early in the cataclysmic Great War between the fledgling UEF and the Confederacy, beneath the sands of the old Holy Land, outside Jerusalem. Those men were all long dead, but if only they'd known what they had found and unleashed. Abaddon was an acronym, short for Archival Biosynthetic Artifact for Data and Dynamic Optimized Nanotechnology. The name had been chosen when its discoverers had realized that the obelisk was a trove of fantastic new nanotechnologies, after subjecting it to rigorous decryption testing for many months. Its ever-changing symbology had been difficult to translate, but once unlocked, nanite tech had changed the course of history and accelerated the Great War to its earth-ruining end. As Avery watched, unintelligible formulas danced across Abaddon's 4 main surfaces, analyzed by a series of scanner arms that fed into a massive translation supercomputer. Forks of etheric psychic lightning flashed up and down the massive object, sparking off the containment field that surrounded it. Steam rose around the pyramid-topped metal obelisk from the temperature differential between the ice-cold laboratory and the machinery surrounding it. But not even the rising gas wanted to be near the powerful artifact, curving around and away from it. The other noteworthy object was a gigantic web of support struts, cabling, and other apparatus, topped by a human-sized seat. This telesthesic amplifier, as Avery called it, was connected to the Abaddon beacon by a series of biofeedback cables, currently being disconnected by lab personnel. The seat required an operator with sufficient psychic ability to control the beacon directly, though no individual had been successful yet, not even Hadrian Mariko. After the debacle with the Confederacy, and after exhausting all other conventional solutions for the nanophage, Avery was sure that this was their final chance to stop Abaddon's technoplague, as Shaylin had wished. Through its miraculous nanotechnological gifts, the Abaddon beacon had saved civilization after the Great War, allowing Colossus Station and the Earthside arcologies to be built. It had unlocked the Sol system for colonization and exploitation, extending the lifespan of the human species a little bit further. But if the phage couldn't be resolved, humanity's reliance on the obelisk for borrowed time would become their doom. Avery knew that Hadrian Mariko would never understand that. He'd only ever seen the Abaddon beacon as a tool of ultimate control, and Abaddon itself had clearly manipulated Mariko and his Abrahamic power since his time in the labs and far beyond. But most of all, Avery was terrified of Abaddon's final intentions. He had witnessed the artifact attempt to destroy the human race once, and the Confederacy had suffered the ultimate price to stop Abaddon's ascension attempt. All of Avery's efforts to prevent that from happening a second time were now in tatters. Years of work in the labs had yielded no new candidates and no new options or countermeasures against the phage or Abaddon's psychic influence. It had called Mariko back home. And Jason, the Abamancer program's prime subject, was still missing. If Abaddon brought the two of them together, Willingly or otherwise, the eldritch machine would use them to deliver its kill stroke to the human race, and Avery would be powerless to stop it. Avery picked up the photo of his wife again. "If you're up there, Shaylin, I know I've had my differences with the big man, but if you've got his ear, we could really use some help down here."